Okay, welcome to the Kentucky Fried Chronicles. My name is Starvin Marvin. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name. I'll let you take that. Start with that.
Dedi,
Okay,
Dedi Meiri.
so you are, from what I've seen, you're the man with the plan on uh, researching for cannabis in medicinal uses. What? Could you start by sharing how you first became involved with cannabis research and what inspired you to pursue this field? What got you started in this direction?
Yeah, so I'm coming from a background from plants. I have a PhD in genetical and molecular plant biology. But then I moved to do a cancer research. I did 4 years in Toronto, where I work in Princess Margaret Hospital. It's a hospital for cancer study. And when I came back to Israel and opened my lab, I kind of merged these two fields. I started to look for plants that affecting cancers, and I looked for a few different herbal plants that that known for years that people are using them for treating, and started to work with them. And after a year, there was a publication by a Spanish group by Manuel Guzman and Christian Sanchez. It showed that if you put cannabis on breast cancer, it's blocking the ability to create metastasis, and that was how I started. I said, okay, this is a plant. It was very interesting. It was a little bit before the hype and that everybody was talking about. I applied to the Ministry of Health to get a license to do cannabis research, and actually in Israel I got a license which is R001. I was the first one that applied to the Ministry of Health. We had Rafi Meshulam here, who is the godfather of the field, and he discovered the THC and the CBD, but he started to work on the 60s. Nobody asked him license for that, and he all these years worked without a license. Actually, the first approval license with me. But this also created a problem because I was the only one that got licensed to do research. I was totally in the desert. Like, you can't collaborate with anyone. If you're going to the microscope in the other building, you're a criminal. So because you got a license to work in your lab and whatever. And right in the beginning, I saw phenomenal results almost in everything that we did, whether it was cancer and other things. But I realized that there is a huge difference between the different strains, high CBD, high THC, but also internal, different strains of high THC, different strains of high CBD. And also the growers that days didn't grow that, indoor or very controlled environment. So the difference between summer and winter was big in the compounds and everything. So in order to overcome that, we established methods to analyze the active compounds in order to be able to repeat the experiments. So we were the first lab in the world that create kind of a library of all the active compounds, all the cannabinoids, terpenoids, and flavonoids. So we can analyze 166 cannabinoids, around 140 terpenes, around 50 flavonoids, and we create kind of a map. By doing that, we were the only one in the world that actually knew what the patient is taking, because you can call it white widow or purple kush or whatever, but exactly what entered to the body of the patient, you don't know. A few years ago, Reggie Miller from Steep Hill Company took 10 different white widows from 10 different growers and showed that each one it's a totally different genetics. They just called it white widow. So in order to overcome that, we started to look inside. What are the molecules? What is the composition? But again, we were the only one that can know exactly what the patient is getting. So I approached to the Ministry of Health, and we created the Israeli database on cannabis. So that was 2015. Every cannabis that was picked in Israel or create an extract, create a product, came first to our lab. We fully analyzed that, and the batch had a barcode. And then we follow up on the patient. That days there were 22,000 authorized patients in Israel and just 8 growers. So there was around 80 products 22,000 patients, so it's something that can be controlled. And we just follow up on all the patient, all the indication, all the cannabis, and try to match which composition of cannabinoids and terpenoids affecting which disease or whatever. But that opened my lab to start to work not just with cancer, but with epilepsy, Alzheimer, pain, sleep disorders, everything that patient was getting cannabis by prescription in Israel. And my lab just grew around that. And actually, I have a lab for herbal medicines. So I'm saying that my lab is connecting between herbal medicine and modern medicine. We're taking a plant, doesn't matter which plant, or mushrooms, or every botanic, and we can analyze the active compound, separate them, understand the composition, understand what we call the entourage effect, and we understand what is the entourage effect, what is the composition, and then what is the mechanism of action, how it's affecting our cells, our body, and the disease. So when I'm coming for a physician or a patient and telling that this strain is very effective reducing inflammation, I can explain to the physician in his language why it's reducing inflammation, because these three molecules binding these receptors, reducing STAT3 phosphorylation, which is the activation for that and that and that, you making sense behind what everybody see and knows, okay? So we're doing that mainly for cannabis or other plants, but in cannabis, at least in 8 different indications, we already define the combination of compounds, understand the mechanism of action, and kind of creating real medical cannabis and not just, trial and error or try this or study this and things. So this is what I'm doing and who we are.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, you got to know what's in the plant to treat the specific disease condition, whatever. That makes a lot of sense. So now currently, could you tell us more about your lab at the Technion and the primary areas of cannabis research you focus on, like you said, cancer, Alzheimer's, epilepsy, anything else, Parkinson's maybe?
No, Parkinson's we didn't do much, but inflammation, all well related to immune system. So inflammation, allergy, epilepsy quite a lot, sleep disorder. We work a lot with autism. So we were the first one that did a clinical trial with autistic kids in Israel and create a real indication today that there is more than 2,500 autistic kids that getting cannabis in Israel under this study. And again, I think our ability to understand and to make it more accurate, what is the dose, what is the mechanism of action, what you need to combine in order to get the best results is our major. Still my lab doing a lot around cancer. So, patients in Israel getting prescription when they are having cancer, but as a treatment palliative treatment to the chemotherapy and the radiation that they're getting. So reduce nausea, reduce pain, increase appetite, sleep, mood. For all of these, you're getting cannabis as a something more holistic that treating all of these. But what my lab is studying, whether there is a specific types of cancers that can fight really specific types of the specific strains of cannabis or combination of cannabis that really can fight specific types of cancers. And we have a lot of publication of these, and we started with showing that you can't say cannabis kill cancer, because cancer is a given name of more than 1,000 different diseases. There is no correlation between lung cancer, brain tumors, and skin cancer. Okay, it's a different diseases that operate differently. And also cannabis is a name for thousands of different strains or cultivars. Each one of them harbor a different combination of molecules. So which molecules affect which pathways in the cell that affect specific cancers? And in 3 cancers, one is leukemia, one is breast cancer, and one is cancer that you treat with immunotherapy, so immunosuppressive cancer. We already define specific molecules that really killing or fighting the cancer. And again, I'm not talking about, what we call Rick Simpson oil or something very gross. I'm talking about something very, very specific, almost personal medicine. If you have a leukemia with a specific mutation, with Notch1 mutation, then I know which cannabis can affecting that, and I can explain why it's killing this cancer, because I know which pathways is blocking and everything. I think very important thing, a lot of time people getting as a treatment for cancer, they're getting immunotherapy. And immunotherapy is actually, we are activating our immune system to fight the cancer. Cancer, it's a given name to many different diseases. We put them in a box. We're saying every time that there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, we call it cancer. Actually, Bob Weinberg in 1996, when he won the Nobel Prize, called it the 6 hallmarks. Every time that the cancer doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, every time that a cell doing that, we will call it cancer. Every minute in our body, in every minute, our body create around 2,000 cells that can be cancer cells, that actually cells that losing control or need to die. Usually, they will operate kind of a destroy system that will kill themselves. They're committing suicide. We call it apoptosis. Or if they are not committing suicide, our immune system will recognize them and will kill them. So every moment we have 2,000 cells that our body killing them, but we don't care. That's what's happened every day, thousands of cells like that in our body. But when a cell not committing suicide and can avoid our immune system, we call it immunosuppression. So then he can sit there and get more and more mutation and become very violent. And this is cancer. So by definition, a cancer cell is a cell that not committing suicide and avoiding the immune system. What we're doing, there are medicine, if your cancer is fit and have all the parameters, we have medicines, we call it immunotherapy, that activating or teaching the immune system that this is not a cell, a normal cells, kill it, fight it, okay? So this is the story about the immunotherapy. But in Israel, as I said, automatically a patient that been recognized with cancer can get cannabis. So you get a prescription cannabis, he's going to the pharmacy. There is around 350 different types of cannabis in the pharmacy, and he can get whatever he wants. But we know that cannabis is affecting the immune system. It's affecting inflammatory bowel disease like Crohn's and colitis. It's affecting autoimmune disease. It's affecting inflammation in general. So we ask ourselves, we know that if our immune system is in hyperactivation, it's very active, the cannabis is balancing it down. It's bringing to normal. This is the reason it's good for inflammation or autoimmune disease. But then we ask, if a patient getting a treatment that activating the immune system, do you want to give him cannabis that bringing to normal? It's kind of controversial. So we did a clinical trials on 130 patients, and we saw that really, if they are getting cannabis together with the immunotherapy, it's blocking the activity of the immunotherapy. It's reduced the percentage of patients that will cure from cancer if they are getting immunotherapy. And this was terrible, right? Like, you think about it, said you want to give something that helps the patient, but actually you're killing it because you're blocking the treatment. You give a medicine that costs $10,000, but then you give cannabis. But we saw that it reduced the percentage from 42% success to 12% success. So we said, okay, let's look on the 12% that got immunotherapy and cannabis, and it's helped them. And we look which strain they are getting, and we did 5-year study, and we succeed to understand which compounds in the cannabis actually enhancing the immune system, and then it's working together with the immunotherapy and which cannabinoid is blocking the immunotherapy. And for that reason, I'm saying it's not enough to say cannabis is good for something. We really need to know. And I'm talking about real patient. I'm not talking about recreational, but where you have fun and it's fine. And I'm not talking about even major things like a pain or a mood. I'm talking about when we really want to treat a patient that is really, really sick, kid with epilepsy, cancer patient, or like a severe patient. We need to think about that more thoroughly and more professional. And in the end, it's a life of people, and we can really help. Cannabis have magic inside and can do many things, but to know which cannabis to which disease or which indication, it's extremely, extremely important.
Yeah. So cancer, specifically, I'm interested in. I had my grandfather, my grandmother, and their daughter, my aunt, all have Alzheimer's or dementia in some shape, form, or fashion. What have you seen with treating specifically the neurological conditions like Alzheimer's or dementia, and what types of cannabinoids have you seen more effective than others?
Yeah, so in dementia, like cancer, we can look on that as a palliative treatment or as a really treating the disease. When we're talking about palliative treatment, cannabis is really helping the dementic a patient. It reduces violence. Sometimes when they have a very severe dementia, they become violent, so it's reduced violence. It's helpful with sleep. It's help with appetite. A lot of them losing appetite. So as a palliative treatment, we see that it's really, really helpful. And actually in Israel, there is a scientist that did a double-blind placebo control clinical trial, all what you need, and she showed very significantly that cannabis is very effective with the quality of life of a dementic patient with Alzheimer patient. And this is a very important paper, published in Nature in one of the best journals. And from that moment in Israel, at least, people with Alzheimer, severe Alzheimer or dementia can get cannabis as a treatment. But now we're asking, like with the cancer, that it's helping for sleep and reducing violence or aggressive. This is, I think, every patient, every cannabis user or everybody that work with cancer know this phenomenon. The question, does really cannabis can affecting Alzheimer? And in a study that we did, we saw that the acid form of cannabis, CBDA and CBGA, can really affecting reducing the plaque in Alzheimer patients. So one of the reason or the cause of Alzheimer, our neuron cells started to create a protein called beta amyloid and secrete it. And these beta amyloids stick together and create clumps. And these clumps starting to kill the cells around them. They are poison to the cells. So this caused the brain to be like a cheese with a holes. And this is one of the major phenomena of Alzheimer. What we saw, that the acid form, like we saw that for 2 cannabinoids, but it's mostly all the acids from the CBDA and CBGA. They are activating cells in our brain called microglia to clean, like they are kind of swallowing the beta amyloid and cleaning the area. By cleaning them, they are stopping this killing of the cells, and this is why it's kind of blocking the disease to progress. So you can stop the progression of the disease by using that. This is all in animal models. So what I said before that, the aggression, what I said with the cancer and other things, we tested also in humans. What we test with the dementia is and Alzheimer and the beta amyloid is all in animal models, and the brain of a mice is very different from our brain. So I wouldn't sign on that, but the preclinical work is very promising.
That's good to hear. So
Yeah, I want to say something.
yeah, go
I
ahead.
think I think we need to look out of the box. This is a pitch that I'm giving usually when I'm starting my talks. Saying people use plants as a medicine for thousands of years. In the last 100 years, every time that we succeed to isolate a single molecules, somebody wrote a patent on that and it's become a medicine. 80% of our medicines coming from plants. And it doesn't matter if we're talking about chemotherapy, most of them came from plant. Taxol came from Taxus, vincristine, vinblastine came from Vinca, and I can go on and on. Colchicine coming from another plant. Like, in the end, we isolate the molecules from a plant that doing an effect. But every time it was more complicated. We couldn't isolate the molecule, or it was a combination of molecule. We left it as a herbal medicine. And the reason, because we didn't have the tools to isolate these molecules or to understand the combination. It was too complicated. What's happened in the last 20 years, computers started to help us to do sophisticated things. Our analytical tools become very sophisticated because the use of the computers and everything. So today, if I'm taking a plant and making an extract, I can run it in my machine and in 20 minutes look on 2,000, 4,000 different molecules. I couldn't do that without computers. And these machines are looking on these molecules, going to the cloud, fit with these molecules, coming back and said, these are the molecules that you have. So if it's a recognized molecules, you can have them. We call it proteomics, metabolomics, whatever. This ability open a new world that if I want to look on the combination of 3 or 4 molecules, it's not even an AI, it's an Excel file. Okay, it's so easy. And I think there are diseases that we are hitting our head to the wall for 50 years to start to solve them with a single molecules and doing something. But the way to solve these diseases or to block them, it's more complicated. And we will need to use a combination of molecules that doing an effect, or combination of molecules that affecting different systems in our body that all together will create a whole treatment. We called it in cannabis entourage effect, but it's actually to be more complicated and more complex. And that's what we're trying to show and to do. I will give one example on inflammatory bowel disease. We have a disease like Crohn and colitis, which you have a chronic inflammation in your intestine. But this is actually, there are 2 main systems there. There are the colon cells and there is the immune system that's coming and creating this inflammation. So if you can block the colon cells to call the immune system, you will affect this disease. If you can block the immune system to migrate to the disease, you will block the disease to the colon cells. And we found that in cannabis, you have molecules that blocking the colon cells to secrete the cytokine that calling the immune cells. And you have molecules that blocking the immune cells to migrate towards the disease. So if now you have a strain that harboring these molecules and these molecules, now you get a very strong effect on the patient, very specific and much stronger than each one of them. But this is a very complicated treatment. If you now making a medicines, you need 3 molecules here, 2 molecules here, it's a 5 molecules. No way you will cross FDA ever, okay? But I think as a scientist and physician and people that treating patients, we need to think out of this box. If you think about a physician, okay, somebody that treat patient 5,000 years ago, if you come in with inflammation, he wouldn't give you 1 molecule. He will take a root from here, a flower from here, a leaf from here, combine them together and give you. He will do actually what we call the entourage effect or polypharmacology. He will do what I'm trying to prove now, that is more effective treatment. And there is so much knowledge in this ancient, treatment, because they tried this. If it killed the patient, he wouldn't try it again. If it's helped, he will keep it and tell it to his sons and grandsons, So you have a lot of observational, but it's very important observational. So I think it's very important. I think this is the way to go to try to treat diseases like Alzheimer, ALS, cancers that we are not even succeeding to scratch the treatment or to do that. And we literally proving that in the lab. We see how much it's more complex and how much it's working better.
That's very promising. So are you like creating a distillate or an extract and using it to treat, or are we using like the plant itself? Or
First of all, I'm a scientist. I'm not a physician, so I'm not treating patient. I'm trying to create the knowledge to publish it, and from there,
right.
the people take it. But saying that, it's not really true in my case, because I'm very involved in the regulation in Israel. I'm, the advisor for the Minister of Health for psychedelic plants in general, and I'm very involved in the regulation and the treatment. So I do try to create, medicines in Israel or extract and plants that we have more evidence. I don't think we can, in most of the cases, to isolate one molecules or to do distillate. But I do think that if a patient get a prescription, he can start with the more narrow options and not do trial and error on 350. So to define more specific strains that can affecting the patient, this is the goal that I see in cannabis. I'm teaching the physician, I'm teaching the pharmacist, I'm trying to help to choose the better treatment. People say in cannabis, every patient is different using cannabis. This is true, but it's true for every medicine. A male and a female are very different by their hormones, and me and you are different in our genetics and in our way to every medicine will affect us. A physician usually is kind of is doing a lot of statistics. He's, a patient, a child with epilepsy coming to the physician. You have 7 authorized medicines, and now according to the genetic of the patient, the type of the epilepsy, he will choose the best treatment that he think is the highest possibility that it will work. It's actually, he's doing a lot of statistics calculation. What is the best for this? But it's all statistics. This is the possibility that it will help the kids is 45%. The second one is 35%, and the third one is 20%. But somehow just the third one is the one that's helping them. But the physician is trying to define or to choose the treatment that he thinks is the best for the patient. And I think we can do that with cannabis too. Doesn't mean that all the patient will take the first one and it will help them. The meaning that we are increasing the possibility that it will help them. And this is, I think, very important. A lot of patients abandon the treatment with cannabis because they are getting the wrong strain, trying once, twice, and leave it. Now, Israel is very, very different from the US in the way we are treating patients. In Israel, it's a medicine under prescription, under the healthcare, in pharmacy, like every other medicine. But actually, it's the most prescribed medicine. We have 145,000 patients that getting cannabis under prescription. Don't forget that we are less than 10 million. So in percentage, it's the most prescribed medicine in Israel, 145,000 prescription every month. So it's the most prescribed medicine in Israel because it's many indication, many patients, and. But in the end, a lot of patients getting cannabis prescription without asking or without knowing exactly what is cannabis, that they would never try. You know, my mother, 80 years old, suffering from pain, suffering from spasticity. Her physician prescribed her cannabis. Now she will take the cannabis, and it's high THC. She will feel high. She don't know these feelings. She don't know how. She thinks something is wrong. It didn't reduce the pain, and she said, "I don't want to take it anymore." And I think following up with the patient in the right way and explaining exactly for every strain what is the affecting, what is the side effect that you're going to feel, what is the will increase the possibility that the patient will get benefit from the treatment.
Yeah, that's something I've had. My mother, I gave her some gummies, and she didn't like the way they made her feel, so she quit taking them. But I can see what you're saying there. So, what are some of the biggest challenges that you face in doing your research today? Like, are there any regulatory challenges, or Israel's pretty open to it, right?
Israel is very open, but still, I think the regulation is the one that inhibits the study to run fast. In Israel, all the cannabinoids and all the plants are under you need a license. So even if I want to import 50 grams of CBD, it will take me 2 months to get a license for that and approval and everything. And I'm doing study in mice, but for each one of them I need to get approval. I had a lot of arguments in the Minister of Health said, what do you care what my mice have? If you are giving me permission to work with cannabis and to hold cannabis and to work with mice, what do you care if you have Alzheimer, epilepsy, or colon disease? But still, and I think it's very difficult to work with abroad scientists. We used to collaborate a lot with scientists, but now I want to work with a scientist in UC Davis, for example, or in Columbia in New York. And I have results here, and I want to send him the material that he will test on his, methods or whatever. I can't really send this product. Even the regulation is very open. Even it's very legal it's legal in the US. I can't really send now an extract, a 5 ml extract of a strain that having THC just like that to the US, right? So this is really painful, and the regulation is just blocking our ability to move faster. I will say another thing. In the past, 2017, 18, 19, we had huge amount of money streaming to us for the big companies from Canada, from the US, to invest in science and in the medical cannabis. And somewhere in 2021, 22, it just stopped totally. And the company that called themselves pharma company, if you think about the companies, whether this is Kronos, Tilray, Columbia Care, the big companies that was initial, they all talk about medicine and pharma, and we are a pharma company, we create medicines. They all move to say we are adult use. We don't want our hands to be dirty with the pharma or with medicine. And this dry our labs from the money that helps us to run fast. And it's very, very, very difficult today to get funding to the studies, even though I'm showing that I'm saving people in cancer and results from humans and everything. It's very difficult. Pharma companies don't want to enter because it's still difficult in front of the FDA. Cannabis companies stop give money to research, and in between it's very difficult to sponsor the work. Also, all the grants, which is academic grants, and you submit it to the healthcare or to the government, it's almost always blocked. They see cannabis, it's still most of the regulation and the academia and the governments are kind of against. We live in a bubble. We see our people that are around us, and everybody knows what is cannabis, and everybody, this is our friends and our surrounding. But when you move from this bubble, you're going to the hospital, go to slot quartering and in the treating cancer, and speak with the physician there and said that you want to give cannabis because it's maybe curing cancer, they will throw you from the window. And this is the people that decide if you're getting money or not. So it's become very, very difficult for me, at least in the last 2 years. I was very sponsored. We bought the best equipment. I bought the best people. We ran very, very fast. But in the last year and a half, it's become very, very difficult. Actually, I'm sponsoring the cannabis research from other grants that I'm getting from other plants which are not psychoactive, or because it's easy to get grant from them.
Yeah, I know we're getting short on time here. We'll try to wrap it up. What do you see the future of cannabis research and using it for medicinal treatments? Where do you see us going over the next decade, say?
I think people don't understand that cannabis it's not a normal plant. It's a very unique plant, and people farming cannabis and do breeding of cannabis more than 10,000 years. It's the most ancient plant that we know that people did agriculture with. So people breed it and breed it and breed it and breed it and create. I'm used to say they create a poodle, a puppy that is fit to ourselves, that is really a very strong medicinal plant, harboring huge amount of active compounds, but most of that, our endocannabinoid system in our body is totally underestimate how important it is. Actually, every cell in our body, every cell harboring the endocannabinoid system have receptors for the endocannabinoid system and can secrete endocannabinoids. Again, usually people think that there are two receptors, CB1, CB2, but my lab looking at around 40 receptors, which we considered for the endocannabinoid system. And when I'm taking a blood samples, I can recognize 125 different endocannabinoids, not just anandamide and 2-AG. There is a huge variety. And it's actually a system in our body that brings everything into balance. And doesn't matter if you're talking about your heart beating, glucose metabolism, how you feel, appetite, pain, inflammation, immune system, all of them being controlled by the endocannabinoid system. And for that reason, cannabis is affecting almost all diseases. There is a big publication from a factor from 2012 from the NIH that wrote the endocannabinoid system may affect all diseases known in humans, which is crazy saying by the NIH, but it is what it is. It's because it's affecting the endocannabinoid system. It's affecting almost every cell in our body and can affect almost all diseases. And I think we are just scratching the beginning, understanding how many things we can treat with cannabis if we will know to define it right. So I see a very pink future for cannabis. I think every discovery, another medicine that we create from cannabis will boost other companies to invest more research, will boost scientists to study, will create the next medicine, the next product, and this is a snowball that will grow and grow. I think that people doing a very accurate science with cannabis in the last 5-7 years. So we started to see the effects now, and we'll start to see more and more, startups that going to really FDA approval, whether this is botanical or like full spectrum or isolate. And I think every success will bring the next success.
Do you think, last question, do you think that the new administration in the U.S. and their close ties with your country, Israel, do you think this could help? And with RFK's views on using cannabis for medicine, do you think this could all help to maybe get us on the right track and help with your funding and research and just all around?
So I'm not good in politics, and I learned that every time that I think there is a good politician, it becomes very bad, and every politician that we think is a nightmare, and then we are looking backward and said, "Oh, I wish he was here now." So that's what I learned from Israel and from the States. So I don't know about politics, but I think I think there is a increase in study cannabis, and I think people start to understand how much is effective, and for that reason I think it will create more bonding and more work. And in the end, maybe I'm very naive, but I think even the guy that's sitting in the FDA and the guy in the government, they are all in the end humans that are study something and then sitting there. They all have parents, kids, they all know people, they all know they are sick by themselves. And when something is real, something is really curing or really affecting, it will find its way to be a treatment in the end, and people will use it. Whether it will come from underground, whether it will come from the direct path, but it will find its way. And I think things that are real and affecting, the FDA in the end will approve them, the physician in the end will use them, people will use them more and more. And for that reason, I believe we will see more and more real treatment with cannabis.
Well, Dedi, thank you very much for coming on and talking to me for this session. I appreciate it greatly. Maybe later on down the road we can have you back on again after we have some more advancements and stuff. But any closing thoughts you got?
No, I wish for us that we will be healthy and not need medicines. But if we need, cannabis is a good solution.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. And
thank you.
good talking to you. You have a good day.
Bye. Thank you very much.